אנחנו נלמד יחד מתוך שיעור תעש עם הרבש.
We're going to study together from a test lesson with Rabash. We'll be reading from volume 2, part 5. We will be reading item 40 before we go to the lesson. Again, part 2, part 5, item 40. Afterward, the light returns to being mati, expanding in Keter. And then both Chokhmah and Binah ascend there because of the desire they have. Then you find that there's a great distance between the sons and the light of Gar. For there are two distances between them, Binah and Chokhmah, in which there's no light. Hence, at that time, the light of Chesed rises to Binah and is called not Mati in Chesed, not expanding in Chesed. In that state, the vessel of Chesed turns its anterior and gives the six lights below in Gevurah.
We get confused. From the posterior and anterior of the screen and the posterior and anterior of the kli. I want to find now a difference between when I say the face and posterior of the screen and face and posterior of the qualities of the vessel. You can say even Binah, who has phase 2 and receives from Chokhmah, and phase 1 that has the vessel of Binah, that's from phase 1. Don't forget about that. And what did he do now? That it will be expanding in Chokhmah. But as long as Chokhmah has phase 2, phase 2 of Chokhmah does not get refined before phase 2 of Binah is refined together with phase 2 of Chokhmah.
And then
the
question is asked.
The question, when does phase 1, Chokhmah, has enough to be able to give to the vessel of Chesed? If I say that before phase 2 was refined, when phase 2 of Binah was refined and phase 2 of Chokhmah and Gimel, phase 3 of Chokhmah, then there's no Chokhmah in the degree. It's not expanding in the degree. In the Chokhmah, how can it give Chokhmah to the vessel of Chesed? So he wants to say here that when the vessel of Chokhmah was refined from phase 3 over 2 to 1, and vessel of Binah from phase 2 to 1, and it's still not expanding in Keter, that they now have to rise to the Keter and make a zivug, a coupling, over on phase 4 over 3.
There's still no control for the Binah to rise to Keter to say that there's no Chokhmah in this degree. But as long as there's no expansion in Keter, meaning the light of Keter that is below in Malchut of Rosh, upon phase 4 of Kli of Keter, so there will be only Chasadim in the degree and not Chokhmah, then there still is Chokhmah in the degree. But Binah that was refined from 2 to 1 cannot yet give Chesed to Chokhmah So here, when 2 of the vessel of Chokhmah, Binah, rose to Keter, it became Mati and Keter, and then there's Chasadim, and there's no Chokhmah in Keter. So she gives the difference of Gvura and rises to Binah and receives Chesed. That's the difference. What's the difference between stage 2 and stage 1 and stage 2? In the first stage, we learned that there's a vessel of Chokhmah, Gimel, and then 3, and then it refines to being phase 2. The question is asked. We said that the vessel of Chokhmah has 2. Does it still have Chokhmah? It doesn't have Chokhmah. It has Chokhmah. Okay. And then she gives to it what's to be now from phase 2, from her 2 bits, from her 2 twos. So the 2 is the level of male that emerged on two twos, and gives it to Bina. There's a Chokhmah there or not? We learned that no, because as we learned, it was delighted in mercy. Okay, so he gives an explanation to this. In Chokhmah, there still is 2. In Bina, what is there? 2 alone. That's one stage. Yes? In the first stage, when the Kli of Chokhmah gives to Bina, so she's not expanding in Chokhmah, so there's no Chokhmah that's refined. There's nothing. In Chokhmah, there's nothing. Not 3 and not 2. 3 is refined first, and 2 is refined now. If so, phase 1, who received now Binah from Chokhmah, is called a baby who needs his mother. Where even the mother wants to give Chokhmah to who? To phase 1, there isn't. Why? Phase 2 was refined of coarseness of the vessel of Chokhmah. So in the vessel of Chokhmah, there is nothing. It turns out that even though phase 1 of the vessel of Bina and wants to give it to her sons, she doesn't have. There's no Chokhmah in that degree. Chokhmah has been refined from the degree. And we can say then that when 1 of the vessel of Chokhmah, meaning when the vessel of Chokhmah remained in 2-1, then her 3-2 rises to the vessel of Keter and expands in Keter. So there I learn, expanding in the Keter and does not expand in Chokhmah, and expands in Bina, the thing is over. What's in Bina? 2 of clothing and 1 of coarseness. Another point. Here a question is asked. When I say that phase 2 of coarseness has been refined in the vessel of Chokhmah, upon phase 2 of coarseness, light emerged. If this light departs, this light remains. The whole level emerged upon phase 2 of coarseness in the vessel of Chokhmah. The phase of 2 of coarseness, there isn't now, if there's existence for this light or not. Or I would say that phase 2 of clothing of the vessel of Binah, only because of 2 of clothing, it's considered female in the measure that, and this light did not emerge upon phase of coarseness. We should say that it doesn't have. That's what is obliged here from this situation. We'll leave that on the side. So first of all, what does Binah have now? Phase 2 of clothing, and it has 2 of clothing and cannot give to the vessel of Chesed. It turns out that she cannot give to the vessel of Chesed from the 2 phases for 2 reasons. 1, of 2 of clothing. 2, there's no Chokhmah. It's considered a baby who needs his mother. Also a question. When Chokhmah departed to 1, refined, then I have no Chokhmah. So there's no point of Chokhmah refining to 2-1, or is there's no Chokhmah there because 2-3 of the vessel of Chokhmah rose to Keter, and then they expanded in Keter. But the upper one there's no Chokhmah, so therefore there's no Binah in Chokhmah. Also, same question. Or we can say that 2-1 still remained during the time of, or we can say that while phase 2-1 refined, there's no longer Chokhmah. Although we'll say it in a different way. What's the question? If I say that 3-2 has been refined in the vessel of Chokhmah, it's already considered not expanding in Chokhmah, or there still could be Chokhmah in the degree, as long as it did not expand in Keter. So the question is asked here, why doesn't it give for the time being Chokhmah to the vessel of Binah? If I were to say it that way, phase 1 already has to receive Chokhmah from who? From 2-1? From 3-2 that have been refined in the vessel of Chokhmah? We'll leave that on the side. Let's move to the second stage. What was in the second stage? We learn now that 3-2 of the vessel of Chokhmah rose to the vessel of Keter and became expanding in Keter, and we learned that expanding in Keter and not expanding in Chokhmah and expanding in Binah does not expand in Chesed thus far. What was there in the second stage? When 4-3 refined of Keter and became 3-2 in the vessel of Chokhmah, here he brings an innovation. When Chokhmah illuminates, he comes and says, Bina rises to Chokhmah. What's the meaning of these words, Bina and Chokhmah? So he says, now that he already has phase 1, for the benefit of the sons, she changes her phase, her discernment, and now she expands in Chokhmah. Chokhmah has 3-2. So she receives Chokhmah in the vessel of Chokhmah. Why is there Chokhmah in the degree? And Bina changes her way for the sake of the phase that's in her. So now I'm saying, when I say that there's Chokhmah in Chokhmah, I can understand that there's the light of Chokhmah in the vessel of Bina. Next. Now I learn that Bina needs to be refined from phase 2 of clothing of hers to only be phase 1 in order to give Zeganpin the light of Chokhmah only upon phase 1. So we learn 2 of Bina has been refined to 1. Prior to that, she turned her anterior to receive Chokhmah for the sons. And now that she already has Chokhmah for the sons, then it's a must for her to be refined, to give something for the sons. Before she has Chokhmah for the sons, what's the benefit of being refined? One way or another, she cannot give birth to her sons. Whereas now, she already has Chokhmah. Why, when it illuminates in Chokhmah upon phase 2 of coarseness 3-2, I can say that what is in Chokhmah that was refined? That's why I'm saying that Bina that has Chokhmah for the sons is refined from 2 to 1. Then her 2 rose to the vessel of Chokhmah. It turns out that in the stage we're learning now, not expanding in Keter, expanding in Chokhmah, and Bina has been cancelled, received Chokhmah, and then has been refined to 1. Afterwards, she is given chesed. It turns out that it doesn't expand in keter, it expands in chokhmah. It doesn't expand in bina, expands in bina rose to chokhmah, expands in chesed, and that's the second stage. You're saying there's chokhmah in this because of the desire for the beating? No. Now, stage 3. After Bina rose her phase 2 to Chokhmah, then Chokhmah was also refined due to the clashing. So now Chokhmah is where Chokhmah has been refined and Bina has been refined, and they all rose to Keter, and they expand in Keter. When the expansion in Keter happens, now it illuminates Chasadim, so there's no Chokhmah. Not in Chokhmah, she rose upwards. Not in Bina, she rose upwards. Not in Chesed, there is no Chokhmah. It turns out that her remnants, what's remained of Chesed, there's only Chasadim there and no Chokhmah. We need to remember the rule. In each and every Sefirah, we discern 2 inclusive phases, one of Chokhmah and one of Chasadim. This depends on the level of that degree. We call this in the law. Hence, the Chasadim that remain in the vessel of Chesed, she can give to Gvura. It turns out that in phase 3, we learn it expands in Keter, does not expand in Chokhmah, and does not expand in Bina, and does not expand in Chesed, and expands in Gvura. When I say, the question is this way. Again, the question. When I say that Bina rises to Chokhmah, then Chokhmah is refined, yes or no? Not yet. Bina in her place when there's phase 1 can receive Chokhmah from Chokhmah? Yes, why not? Only what? She cannot exit outwards because Bina phase 2, so she wants to give Chesed. It must be all 1. So we learn Bina is refined from 2 in the clothing of 1. And then this is considered 2 things. Bina is coupled with Chokhmah and receives Chokhmah. After she receives Chokhmah, it already has what to give to her sons. And she already has to give to her sons, she refines to phase 1. It turns out that after that, where I can learn, expands in Chokhmah, 3-2 illuminates, and where Bina refines does not touch them. It doesn't touch, it has no bearing on them. It turns out that the upper one has the ability to learn now easier. That you think, yes? What's more important do you think here? I must say that the vessel of Chokhmah refined before Bina. In first stage, I have to say this way. Why? There was no reality for the vessels yet. Now that there is a reality of vessels, I can learn that when it expands in Chokhmah 3-2, then the vessel of Bina that has delighted in mercy is phase 1, her sons. She changes her ways for the sons and receives Chokhmah from who? As now it expands in Chokhmah, there's 3-2 I'm saying. And afterwards, when I say that since there is what to give to the sons, she has the illumination of Chokhmah. That's why she is refined from 2 to 1 in order to give it Chesed. And the matter is over. Now, who causes there to be an expansion in Chokhmah? The beating. So they say that after the beating, they ascend, and it becomes expanding in Keter, and still there's no Chokhmah, And then I say the order, expanding in Keter, not expanding in Chokhmah, doesn't expand in Bina and doesn't expand in Chesed, expands in Gvura, and now it's easier. Not easier. And it turns out below. We're reading below. Your question we'll see later. When Bina bestowed the light of Chesed to the vessel of Chesed, what did it bestow it? Again, the light of Chokhmah upon phase 1. So I must say, Bina was refined from 2 to 1. Otherwise, there's no equivalence of form. There was a whole order of gradual refinement here. First, Keter was refined from phase 3 to phase 2, at which time the light of Keter disappeared to the root and gave phase 2 to the vessel of Chokhmah. Then it's considered expanding in Chokhmah. And I can add, there's phase 3 of clothing and phase 2 of coarseness, everything. Then we learn the vessel of Bina, while it has phase 2, it already has a phase within it. Then the vessel of Bina united with it, with the vessel of Chokhmah, into one. Why? Since there's already Chokhmah. So now it's considered that Chokhmah, for the benefit of the sons, goes and receives Chokhmah. Now that Bina has Chokhmah to give to Chesed, and how can she give to Chesed phase 2? So, and then phase 2 was also refined of Bina to phase 1. At that time, she gave what? She gave what? What did she give to phase 1? To Chesed, we need to say? Chokhmah. So he says it this way, and then they disappeared. I say it this way, and phase 2 was also refined to phase 1. Jump on it. And phase 1 is bestowed upon the vessels of Chesed in illumination of Chokhmah. And then the lights and the vessels of Chokhmah, Bina to Keter, due to the beating, and then it becomes expanding Keter. Okay? The question is like this: what does it give us that we say that it remains like this way in the Kli of Bina? First, we say that before Bina is delighted in mercy, she received the level from Chokhmah at first stage upon the Chasadim due to being delighted in mercy. Then we learn that the second phase of the vessel of Chokhmah was refined to phase 1, and she received the sons. Now that she already received the sons, there's no longer Chokhmah in the degree. And we learn that 2 that have been refined from the vessel of Chokhmah, that gave 1 to who? To Bina. If it was not refined, there's no 1 in Bina. So they rose to Keter and became expanding in Keter, and it became expanding in Keter, not expanding in Chokhmah, expanding in Bina. And what's in Bina now? Her phase 2 and phase 1 of the sun without Chasadim, Chokhmah. Then in the second stage we learn, again it becomes not expanding in Keter, it refines the screen, and once again it expands in Chokhmah, 3-2. Now,
נעבור לחלק הבא של השיעור.